Hey everyone, this is Six Path Weeb, back with another deep dive into the Naruto universe. Today's topic is a fascinating what-if scenario. What if Naruko were trained by Kisame? Imagine the clash of styles, personalities, and philosophies. How would this unexpected mentorship reshape Naruko's journey and powers? Disclaimer, this content is purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage shown. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Alright, let's get into it. Hoshigaki Kisame was, contrary to common belief, not actually out of his mind. He simply had a very firm belief in the principle of only the strongest endure. That was his way of looking at the world. So, when he stumbled upon a severely injured yet still breathing Uzumaki Naruko in the quiet forests of Hai no Kuni, he was more than a little surprised. Hurt as she was, what mattered most was that she was alive, and already showing signs of recovery. The sight itself wasn't what startled him. What truly caught his attention was that despite being alone in such a desolate area, the young girl was still holding on. Wild animals had not approached, and though she had clearly been there for quite some time, her body was mending itself in remarkable ways. Normally, Kisame would have kept walking. Most children, if they suffered injuries like these, would not last long. But this time was different. Seimata, his ever-sensitive companion, detected something unusual within Naruko's chakra and alerted him. That was reason enough to take a closer look. 1. Distinct whisker-like facial markings, often associated with Jinchuriki? Yes. 2. Injuries that should have been overwhelming for someone so small? Yes. 3. A strange, powerful chakra repairing the damage? Yes. 4. Her age, about 4 years old, matching the year since the Kyuubi's attack? Yes. 5. Chakra reserves rivaling his own, even though she was just a child? Yes. 6. Wounds shrinking faster than natural healing should allow? Yes. 7. A visible seal on her stomach, clearly meant for containment? Yes. Kisame's sharp grin widened, his shark-like teeth flashing. Well now, looks like I may have found myself a promising apprentice, he murmured. Anyone who could endure so much at such a young age had the potential to grow into a truly remarkable shinobi. Without hesitation, he lifted the unconscious Naruko onto his shoulder and set off at a brisk pace. He wasn't about to linger in Konoha territory with their young Jinchuriki in tow. Discretion was key. A few days later, Kisame sat in a quiet inn in Tetsu no Kuni, waiting. He had brought the child far away from the forest, but she had yet to awaken. He wondered what he might eventually teach her, perhaps swordsmanship, perhaps techniques suited to her elemental nature. A small part of him was curious if she had an affinity for water, which would pair well with his own skills. His thoughts were interrupted when the child stirred, letting out a groan before blinking against the light streaming through the window. Where am I? She asked softly. You're in Tetsu no Kuni, Kisame replied. I found you in the woods and carried you here. Naruko rubbed her eyes, still disoriented. Oh. You've been out for several days, Kisame added. Your body needed rest. But now, you should eat. As if on cue, Naruko's stomach rumbled loudly. Kisame chuckled. I think that answers my question. What would you like? Her eyes brightened a little. Could we find some ramen? Kisame wanted to refuse, but then again, she had survived something extraordinary, and she was still just a child. He gave a small grin. All right, ramen it is. Maybe I'll get shrimp flavor. Naruko tilted her head. What's your name? Hoshigaki Kisame, he answered, extending a large hand. She smiled faintly and reached out with her much smaller one. Uzumaki Naruko. Thank you for helping me. An hour later, Kisame was beginning to realize how much his new apprentice could eat. Naruko devoured bowls of ramen almost as quickly as he could finish his sushi. It wasn't surprising though, shinobi with large chakra reserves often needed more food to keep their energy balanced. What impressed him most wasn't her appetite, but how Naruko had managed to charm the shop owner into giving her a discount with her bright smile. Kisame secretly thought he might be able to use that cheerful charm in the future. All right, kid, how are you feeling? Kisame asked as they left the ramen shop. Pretty good. The fox spirit inside me said I'd be fine once I got some food, Naruko replied with a grin. Not at all surprised by her mention of the 9 tails, Kisame nodded and motioned for her to follow him. Once they reached a quiet clearing away from the village, Kisame turned, ready to begin Naruko's very first lesson in shinobi training. Brat, do you know what shinobi are? Naruko nodded eagerly. Shinobi are protectors, Kisame explained, folding his arms. They train to become strong, carry out missions for their villages, and serve as guardians of their land. Naruko's eyes lit up with determination. Now, chakra, Kisame continued. Chakra is the energy shinobi use for their techniques. To control it, you form this hand seal, watch carefully. 5 years passed in what felt like a blink. Kisame could hardly believe how fast Naruko had grown. She was talented beyond her years, her skills sharpened by his guidance and her relentless determination. The Uzumaki name carried strength, and Naruko had not only inherited it but also discovered her remarkable affinity for water. Her progress amazed him. She had mastered advanced water-style techniques and even demonstrated skill with wind chakra, something they almost missed during testing. Kisame had trained her in swordplay as well, favoring the large Zanbato style of combat. As they traveled together through the forest, Naruko looked up at her towering mentor. "So, who's this person we're supposed to meet again?" "His name is Momochi Zabuza," Kisame replied with a grin. "He's known for his swordsmanship. We're going to meet him because I want you to learn from seeing other great swordsmen." Naruko's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "And the sword you mentioned? Is it like Seimata?" Kisame chuckled. "No sword is like Seimata, she's one of a kind. But this one, called the Kubi Kiribocho, is a powerful Zanbato. A blade with history. You'll see for yourself." Naruko puffed out her cheeks. "Well, a sword that's not finished sounds like eating ramen before the broth is added. Pretty silly." Kisame laughed heartily. "True enough, kid. But sometimes shinobi rush ahead before they're ready. That's a lesson too." They continued traveling swiftly through the trees. Naruko worked hard to keep up, but she never once complained. Kisame liked that about her, she always pushed forward, no matter how tough the path became. Naruko looked at him and, for a fleeting moment, thought of him as a father figure. The thought almost made her giggle. Kisame hardly looked the part of a parent, but he had been there for her all these years. "So, when we meet this Zabuza, what's going to happen?" Naruko asked. Kisame smirked. "He's a professional. He'll check everything carefully before stepping into any meeting. Be ready, this is a chance to learn not only about skill but also about awareness." The door to the meeting place opened, and in walked a tall figure, almost Kisame's height. His face was partially covered, his eyes sharp. He froze when he saw Kisame, his gaze flickering toward Naruko in surprise. "Kisame, what's the meaning of this?" he asked cautiously. Naruko watched closely. Though Zabuza spoke calmly, she could sense the tension in his stance. Years of traveling with Kisame had made her skilled at noticing the subtle signs people gave away, even when they tried to hide them. "Zabuza," Kisame replied smoothly, "it should be obvious. Members of the Seven Swordsmen rarely meet without reason. And I have a student now." He gestured toward Naruko. Zabuza's eyes widened slightly, then narrowed in thought. "So, the time has come, has it? Very well then. I have only one request, should you succeed in what you've come here to do." "Name it," Kisame said. "You're not the only one who has taken on a student over the years," Zabuza remarked as he swung the door open. Standing just behind him was a black-haired child around Naruko's age, poised in a ready stance. Kisame observed this with approving eyes. "Very well, I shall continue with her training," Kisame said. Kisame-sama, I am actually a boy," the child responded politely, though his tone revealed a hint of nervousness. Naruko recognized that sound. It was the kind of politeness used when someone wanted to avoid displeasing a stronger person. Both she and Kisame blinked in surprise. "Are you absolutely certain? Perhaps you're a little of both?" Kisame asked without hesitation, causing the child to blush brightly. "Yes, I'm completely certain," he exclaimed, before quickly covering his mouth with both hands. "Well then," Naruko cheerfully interrupted, breaking the awkward silence, "let's get this challenge started so I can earn my new sword and begin training." Zabuza frowned but turned on his heel and strode out of the building with determination. Later, Naruko and Haku sat together at a small ramen stand in town, awaiting news of which mentor would be guiding whom. "So, how did you end up with Zabuza?" Naruko asked curiously. "Zabuza-sama took me in when I was alone," Haku explained softly. "He raised me and gave me a purpose. My homeland has been struggling, and I had nowhere else to go. He found me when I needed someone most." "That sounds really tough," Naruko replied while signaling for another bowl of ramen. She grinned brightly. "So, what's your special ability?" "I can combine water and wind elements to create ice-style techniques," Haku answered. "Really? That's incredible. My natural elements are also water and wind. Maybe I can learn that too, Naruko exclaimed enthusiastically. Ah, sorry Naruko-san, Haku said kindly, it seems only my family is able to use this combination in that way. Aw, that's a shame, Naruko pouted. I don't really have any fancy powers. Unless you count having a giant spirit sealed inside of me. She dug happily into her ramen while Haku looked on in quiet surprise. So, what exactly is Zabuza training you for? Naruko asked with genuine interest. Mostly refining my control over my techniques, and of course the basics, Haku replied modestly. That's cool, Naruko said with a nod. Meanwhile, in a forest clearing, Kisame smirked at Zabuza. So, you've found yourself a student too, huh? Haku is loyal, talented, and dedicated, Zabuza replied firmly. You haven't changed much, Zabu-chan, Kisame teased. I always knew you weren't one to follow orders for long. Zabuza gave a grunt of acknowledgement. Shall we begin? Kisame grinned, loosening his sword from his back. Don't tell me you're not even going to warm up first? The two clashed, blades ringing through the forest. Kubi Kiribocho and Seimata met with heavy strikes, their resonance carrying through the mist. Zabuza quickly summoned the thick fog of his hidden mist technique, obscuring their surroundings. Kisame chuckled. Trying your silent approach on me, Zabu-chan? Bold choice. You'll never know what works unless you try, Zabuza's voice echoed. Back and forth they went, testing strength, skill, and willpower. Neither gave in, their battle more a contest of spirit than one of destruction. Eventually, the mist cleared, and the two warriors lowered their weapons. Kisame nodded with a rare look of respect. You're as stubborn as ever, Zabuza. Zabuza smirked faintly. And you're just as relentless as always. Their rivalry ended in quiet acknowledgement, not defeat. Kisame retrieved his blade and began walking back toward town. I'd better hurry. If I don't, Naruko will probably eat all the ramen in sight. It was a total disaster. We had planned on making a really loud entrance, you know? So we get there, and there's a couple fast asleep in the room. We set the tags and ran out before they went off. Later that week, we're waiting for the news to report the results, and guess what? Turns out, the lady we thought was with her husband had actually been meeting someone else. So now we had to track down the actual person we were supposed to find just to get paid. It was such a headache. Haku sat quietly to the side, wide-eyed. Zabuza had never asked him to take on a real mission like that yet, he didn't think Haku was ready. But Naruko had apparently been working with Kisame since she was only 7 years old. And she was just 11 now. Hey kids. Miss me? Don't bother answering, I know you did. G-san, could I get the seafood special? Thanks. Kisame grinned, slamming his massive blade into the ground beside Naruko's stool. Naruko's eyes lit up as she admired the weapon with sparkles in her gaze. Ano, Kisame-sama, does this mean Zabuza-sama isn't with us anymore? Haku asked hesitantly. Yeah, kid. But don't worry, he went out giving his very best. That's something any of the 7 swordsmen would be proud of. So, am I traveling with you and Naruko-chan now? Of course you can. Naruko beamed. You're awesome, Haku-chan. She cheerfully ignored Haku's twitch at the suffix. You're lucky that Zabuza and I had already agreed to look after each other's apprentices, or I'd be giving you extra remedial training right now, Kisame teased. Naruko instantly straightened up and began eating her ramen politely, much to Haku's surprise. Haku giggled at the playful dynamic between Kisame and Naruko. The two bickered like family, but when Kisame turned his full attention to his seafood ramen, Naruko cheekily stuck out her tongue at him. In a flash, Kisame pinched her tongue between his fingers, giving her a shark-like side glare. You want me to keep this, fish cake? Naruko yelped and pulled back, pouting. It'd grow back anyway, you oversized sushi roll. Maybe so, but Haku and I would finally enjoy a little peace and quiet for a week. Oh, please. You'd be bored silly without me in 20 minutes. The three ate bowl after bowl, their light-hearted banter filling the stand, until a firm voice spoke behind them. And I'm wondering what a swordsman from the mist is doing with the Jinchuriki of the leaf. Kisame instantly grabbed Seimata and spun to face the newcomer. Naruko vanished in a puff of smoke, reappearing somewhere safe. Haku turned slowly. Behind them stood a tall man with spiky white hair tied back, red markings on his cheeks, and a long scroll strapped to his back. He wore green shinobi clothing with a red cloak draped over it, and his headband bore the kanji for oil. Jiraiya of the Sanin, Kisame said casually. What brings you here? Haku felt his throat tighten. The pressure in the air was overwhelming, like standing between two storms. Then, as if nothing had happened, he noticed Naruko's half-eaten ramen bowl had disappeared. She'd snuck away with it. Haku sighed and facepalmed. Jiraiya's gaze was steady. So, what are you doing with Uzumaki Naruko? She disappeared 6 years ago after being taken out of the village. Everyone thought she was gone. I found her in the forest, Kisame replied. She was tough, determined, and never gave up. I knew she'd make a fine apprentice. And I was right. So you didn't take her against her will? No. She's happy with you? The kid never stopped smiling, no matter what training I put her through. She's never said she wants to leave? She's free to go wherever she wants. She knows her worth, but she stays by choice. That's good enough for me. Jiraiya relaxed and joined them at the ramen bar. Soon enough, Naruko reappeared, bowl in hand. You brought your ramen with you? Kisame groaned. Of course. If you two were going to have an epic showdown, I wasn't watching without snacks. Jiraiya laughed heartily while Kisame grumbled about cheeky apprentices. The evening stretched on with stories, plans, and a lot more ramen. Eventually, the two legendary shinobi struck an agreement, and Naruko's training began a new chapter. She dove eagerly into learning sealing arts and even tried summoning, her chakra overwhelming for someone her age. When the smoke cleared from her first attempt, a massive toad appeared, glaring down at Jiraiya. Jiraiya! Why have you summoned me again? The toad bellowed. Jiraiya winced, already preparing for a long lecture. A 13-year-old Naruko stood at a polished wooden table inside what looked like a carefully maintained underground chamber. Around her were Kisame, Haku, and most of the Kiri rebel faction's leadership, including Ao, a quiet young swordsman named Chojuro, and the newly elected leader, Terumi Mei. Mei was, in Naruko's youthful opinion, a remarkably graceful young woman at the age of 17. Naruko admired her greatly, and her admiration had become something of a light-hearted running joke during the 2 years she, Kisame, and Haku had been with the rebels. She didn't mind the teasing. After all, Kisame had raised her, and if Naruko could take jokes from him, nothing else could truly embarrass her. Haku, ever polite, usually blushed and looked away whenever Mei spoke directly to him. Naruko, on the other hand, would often leap at the chance to give Mei a cheerful hug. Mei only laughed warmly and affectionately referred to Naruko as the cutest shinobi she had ever seen. Chojuro, however, wasn't especially fond of how much attention Naruko seemed to receive. So, Naruko began brightly, this is it? Mei nodded before turning to Kisame. Are you ready for your part of the mission? Kisame gave a confident grin. Leave it to me, Mei-chan. I've been doing this for quite a while. Mei smiled at that. She appreciated that Kisame never teased her about her age and always treated her experience with respect. Then, turning to the 3 younger members at the table, she asked gently, and what about you 3? Are you prepared as well? Naruko raised her hand enthusiastically before Chojuro could answer. You bet, Mei-chan. You can count on us. Haku and Chojuro both agreed quietly, though they blushed when Mei leaned down and gave each of them a playful kiss on the forehead, leaving behind a soft blue imprint from her lipstick. You 3 are the future of Kirigakure's swordsmen, Mei said kindly. I have high hopes for you all. Her words made Naruko, Haku, and Chojuro stand taller with pride. Later, Naruko, Haku, and Chojuro were out on their assigned sabotage and distraction mission. Their task was to delay reinforcements and make sure the main confrontation between Mei, Ao, and the Mizukage went smoothly. Instead of destroying anything, their plan was full of clever tricks, placing itching powder in uniforms, softening the bells so they wouldn't sound alarms properly, and even gluing kunai and shuriken together. The goal was simple: slow down their opponents without causing lasting harm and keep the village safe. I can't believe we're doing something this childish, Chojuro muttered. Aw, come on, Chojuro-kun, Naruko teased with a grin. You've never tried fighting with itching powder in your outfit, have you? It's way harder than you think. Right, Haku-chan? Haku sighed. Yes. I have experienced one of Naruko's pranks before. It was extremely distracting during training. Naruko chuckled. See? Proof that it works. Haku quickly steered the conversation back on track. Either way, being distracted in battle leads to mistakes. So it is a valid tactic. Chojuro frowned but admitted quietly to himself that both Naruko and Haku were very skilled, despite their playful nature. "All right," Naruko cheered. "We've handled the alarms and the uniforms. My shadow clones finished gluing the weapons. Did we miss anything?" "The traps," Chojuro reminded her, sounding exasperated. "Exactly." Naruko struck a mock instructor's pose. "Which is why we'd better move quickly before patrols find us. Let's go." With a reluctant sigh, Chojuro followed. All that would remain behind of their mischief were harmless traps, softened bells, and a few empty glue bottles. Meanwhile, Kisame found himself quietly appreciating his homeland again. The mist-covered lands of Kiri felt both familiar and strangely comforting after so long away. He valued the loyalty and determination of his companions, people like Haku and Mei, who carried themselves with pride and resolve. To him, loyalty was what truly mattered, and that was what bound their group together. As he continued his part of the mission, Kisame noticed a sudden surge of powerful energy rising in the distance, exactly where Mei and Ao were stationed. He paused for a moment, then shook his head. "They're closer than I am," he muttered to himself. With confidence in his allies, he adjusted his grip on Seimata and set off to complete his assignment, humming contentedly at the thought of the mist-shrouded future they were fighting for. The three teenagers simultaneously turned their heads as sounds of alarm and commotion arose from the compound they had just left. Exchanging determined glances, they nodded in unison. Chojuro and Naruko set aside their usual friendly rivalry and moved swiftly in the same direction. They had a future Mizukage to protect. Landing in a clearing marked by a shallow, smoldering crater, Naruko immediately rushed to help Mei regain her footing, while Haku assisted Ao, and Chojuro ensured their surroundings were secure. Breaking the tense silence, Naruko asked, "Mei-sama, what happened here? Is that all that remains of Yagura?" Noticing Naruko's blend of playful energy and professional focus, Ao nodded appreciatively and responded, "Yes, Naruko, Yagura released the Sanbi from its seal and disappeared." The news startled Naruko, causing her to almost drop Kubi Kiribocho before steadying herself. She glanced at Mei, who was leaning for support. "Is that true, Mei-sama? I trust Ao, but Bijou are always unpredictable." Mei gave a firm nod and a small "thank you" before regaining her full balance. "Yes, we were able to lift the genjutsu placed upon him. When reality returned to him, he made a difficult choice regarding the Sanbi. It was a tremendously challenging experience for him." Chojuro observed calmly, "That makes sense, Mei-sama. His connection with the Bijou was very intricate. Any changes would have been intense." Naruko nodded in agreement. "I'm fully integrated with Kyubi, so it's hard to imagine the intensity he must have felt. But we should move, Mei-sama. We need to secure the village swiftly." Mei signaled their forces via her headset, and they began advancing toward the city. A sound behind them made everyone turn immediately into a defensive stance. "So, the rebellion is resolved?" It was Kisame. Relaxing slightly now that another cage-level shinobi was present, the group formed a loose circle around Mei, escorting her back to the village. "Ready to take your responsibilities as a ninja of the village seriously again, Big and Blue?" Naruko teased, making Kisame's expression almost comical. She laughed, only to be gently propelled forward by Kisame's playful educational palm technique. "Mei-chan. That wasn't fair," Naruko exclaimed, cheeks flushed with amusement. Mei smiled serenely at her. "Sometimes, a lesson is necessary, Naruko." Naruko pouted playfully, and Mei leaned down to embrace her warmly. Naruko gave a cheeky thumbs up at a bewildered Chojuro before hugging Mei back tightly. A week later, the newly reformed seven swordsmen, including Naruko, Haku, and the reinstated Kisame, gathered in a conference room with Ao, the newly appointed head of the Anbu Oinen division, and Terumi Mei, now the Godime Mizukage. Mei, keen to maintain efficiency, began the meeting. "Ao, what news did you wish to share?" Ao took a deep breath. "After organizing the return of displaced citizens in Mizu no Kuni, we received some unexpected information. The Uchiha clan was entirely absent from Konoha 3 days ago." Silence filled the room. Naruko, as she often did, broke it with a practical, matter-of-fact remark. "Well, that's unfortunate for them. What's for lunch?" It was another beautiful day in Kirigakure no Sato. Birds chirped cheerfully, the sun began to pierce the lingering morning mist, and the toads croaked contentedly in the ponds. From the outside, one would never guess that the village had experienced a turbulent period just a few years ago. The Mizukage's office was housed in a large, sturdy stone tower, practical yet commanding in appearance. Anyone stepping inside would expect to see Terumi diligently at work, managing the village's daily affairs. That assumption would have been correct, except for the fact that Uzumaki Naruko was visiting at that very moment. From behind a comfortable-looking chair came sounds of laughter and animated conversation. Over the top of the chair, two heads could be seen, one adorned with a red stylized hairpiece, the other a spiky blonde that looked almost like a playful sea urchin. In front of the desk stood three young genin, all sharing features suggesting a familial bond. Tekai, a solidly built young boy with short, white hair and alert red eyes, seemed determined and serious. His sisters, Sayuri and Sakiko, shared his red hair and gray eyes, with an energetic and playful demeanor that made their excitement about the mission obvious. Naruko watched them all with an amused grin, while Mei regarded their enthusiasm as endearing. Tekai cleared his throat, trying to speak, earning twin glares from his sisters for the interruption. The chair swiveled, revealing a slightly flustered but radiant Mizukage Mei and the ever-grinning Naruko. "What can we do for you, my diligent students?" Mei asked warmly. "We came together, Mizukage-sama," Tekai began, maintaining steady eye contact despite the flustered Mizukage adjusting her attire. "We're here to receive our mission, but Naruko, was a bit distracting when we arrived." Mei, having composed herself, gently guided Naruko aside. "Now," she said, "as part of re-establishing connections that were disrupted in the past, we need someone to visit Nami no Kuni to liaise with our trading partners. That's where you four come in. This will also serve as light training to prepare you for the upcoming Chunin exams in Konoha." Naruko straightened and saluted. "Understood, Mizukage-sama. What is the mission?" Smiling at Naruko's seamless transition to seriousness, Mei explained, "You are to travel to Nami no Kuni and find a man named Tazuna. He is the community leader in their largest port town. While there, you may need to handle troublesome individuals who are interfering with trade, ensuring that fairness and justice are upheld for the community." Naruko nodded, her expression calm yet determined. "Understood, Mizukage-sama." Mei continued, "Once your task is complete, you will return and prepare for treaty discussions in Konoha, leading into the Chunin exams." The four genin acknowledged her instructions in unison and departed. "Oh, Naruko," Mei called after her, causing Naruko to turn with curiosity. She smiled, noticing faint traces of lipstick from their playful earlier interaction. Naruko wiped it away with a handkerchief and returned a bright smile. "I'll see you in Konoha, Mei-sama," Naruko said cheerfully. "We'll also have to check out the accommodations while we're there," Mei replied, laughing at Naruko's enthusiasm. As Naruko led the four genin through the village streets, she continued with practical instructions. "Since you've all been on C-rank missions before, you know what to prepare. Let's get our supplies and depart before the day gets away from us." Their cheerful march was interrupted when Naruko felt a playful tap on the back of her head. She turned to see Uzumaki Tatsuki, a poised and graceful woman in her mid-30s, smiling warmly. "Naruko, remember to be mindful of your words," Tatsuki said, wagging a finger playfully. "Of course, Mom," Naruko replied, laughing as the students giggled. Tatsuki pointed them toward the hallway, giving a gentle reminder to continue on their mission. With a cheerful nod, Naruko led her students onward, excited for the journey ahead. When they arrived at the office of Uzumaki Kenshi, the wise clan leader greeted Naruko warmly. His white hair and beard, along with his calm, commanding presence, exuded both authority and kindness. "So, you're taking the triplets on another C-rank mission?" Kenshi asked. "Yes," Naruko replied. "We'll be re-establishing contact with Nami no Kuni and addressing the trade concerns there." Kenshi nodded thoughtfully, then chuckled. "You've grown strong and capable, Naruko. Keep leading them well." Naruko smiled, grateful for the encouragement, ready to embark on a mission that would challenge her skills and strengthen the bonds of her team. VSSSD. Startled, Naruko's genin team spun around and looked behind them to see their sensei crouched in the bushes, twigs and leaves tangled in her hair. "Sensei?" Tekai asked hesitantly. "We need to move quickly before Kenshi realizes I left him with a clone," Naruko whispered. "Sayuri, or maybe Sakiko," Tekai wasn't entirely sure, sighed. "Oh sensei, when will you stop teasing him? You know that this isn't good for his heart." Naruko carefully climbed out of the bush, yelping as a branch snapped back and poked her. "I like to think of it as keeping him alert and attentive." The other twin looked slightly exasperated. "He was startled when you left that string of firecrackers in his desk, Naruko-sensei." Naruko waved her hand casually. "Minor details. We need to move quickly, children, it's time to hit the road." Tekai exchanged a skeptical glance with his sisters before looking back at their sensei. What did you do this time? I didn't do a T, bam. All three students jumped, looking toward the house as smoke curled out of Kenshi's office. An indignant shout of Tekai signaled that their sensei had created yet another chaotic situation. Turning back, they saw nothing more than a dissipating cloud of chakra smoke. Moments later, they spotted Naruko about half a mile down the road. The figure cupped her hands around her mouth. I totally pinned that on you, so you'll want to start moving right now. Tekai shared a look with his sisters before they all started running toward their sensei. I'll get back at her for this one day, Tekai muttered under his breath. Brother, one twin began, the other continuing, don't look behind us, but Kenshi is coming. Tekai looked. Oh no, she's got all her supplies. We told you not to look, the twins said in unison. Together, the three picked up their pace to catch up with their giggling sensei. Dash. I can't believe we borrowed a boat, Tekai said nervously. From the beginning, he had doubts, but Naruko had insisted this was the most efficient way to cross the channel separating Mizu Island and Nami. Naruko wagged a finger playfully. We're sailing now, Tekai. Use proper nautical terms. Tekai sighed and glanced at his sisters for support. Both of them were grinning widely, staring up at the stars. No help was coming from that front. Fine, Tekai muttered, I can't believe we borrowed this vessel, Naruko Niazan. Stop being so serious, Tekai, Sayuri, or maybe Sakiko, chided, her tone light and teasing. Naruko would never do this without a way to return it, the other added. The joys of Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Naruko said with a contented sigh, joining the girls in gazing at the stars in the early dawn. Tekai just grumbled. Kenshi had temporarily restricted his ability to speak, it would last a few hours, he thought. After arriving on shore and sending the boat back with a Kage Bunshin, one of the twins broke the peaceful silence. So, Naruko-sensei, have you ever been to Nami before? Yes, Naruko replied. Kisame and I passed through Nami to reach Tori no Kuni when we were collecting Kubi Kirabocho from Zabuza. She held up her hand to show the intricate ceiling array she had tattooed to safely contain the sword. It was much easier than carrying the heavy blade all day. Tekai hesitated, then asked, Raiga, huh? Do you think you could handle him, sensei? Naruko laughed softly. Raiga is skilled, but no one can truly outmatch me in what I've trained for. One of my affinities helps me counter specific techniques. She shaped a blade of wind around her fist for emphasis. When can we start elemental training, Naruko-sensei? Sayuri asked, her expression hopeful. Let's see how you three perform in the Chunin exams first, Naruko replied casually. Elemental training can be challenging. You'll need a solid foundation in your basic skills before I let you advance. The students' faces fell slightly, but Naruko's cheerful grin reassured them. She understood her students' limits and was careful to keep them safe. Dash. Sensei, is this the place? Tekai asked, stopping in front of a modest house with a small pier. Lights glowed from the ground floor, and voices could be heard through the open doorway. A sudden outburst of yelling from inside startled them all, prompting instant alertness. Two men were guiding a woman with blue hair, looking no older than 30. A child of about 10 trailed behind them, holding a kitchen tool in hand. Tekai, assist her, Naruko instructed. Using Kawarimi no Jutsu, Tekai quickly swapped places with the child, creating a safe position for the woman. Sayuri, Sakiko, check her over. Both girls quickly moved to the woman's side, using their medical skills to assess her condition. Naruko approached the child and knelt down, her calm, piercing blue eyes meeting his. Ma'am, I need to know where Tazuna is, she asked gently. Why? What do you want with my father? The woman stammered. We've been sent from Mist to reopen old trade routes, Naruko explained patiently. Your father was our recommended contact in Wave. If he's in any danger, I need to know immediately so I can ensure his safety. He went to the bridge this morning, the woman replied. The Konoha team he hired to protect him all went with him. Nodding her head, Naruko spoke up so all her students could hear. You three will stay here and watch over these two. No one enters the house without my permission. Understood? The three responded with a firm, "Hi, sensei," which made Naruko nod in approval before turning to the woman who had finally stood with the help of the twins. Which way is the bridge? Following her pointing finger, Naruko nodded and offered a quick, arigato, before vanishing in a blur of sunshine. Come on, let's get you inside and wrapped up in a blanket. We don't want you getting too cold, said the twin on her left in a calm and soothing voice. Tsunami nodded and allowed them to guide her back indoors. Tekai closed the door behind them and then slipped away to a hidden observation point, ready to keep watch over the approaches to the house. His sisters were well trained and fully capable of managing the situation. Emerging onto the mist-shrouded bridge with lightning speed, Naruko surveyed the area carefully. 7 chakra signatures were present, 3 Jinan, 2 Chunin, 2 Jonin, and 1 civilian. Using her water affinity, she gently dispersed the mist and sent it flowing back toward the ocean, revealing the scene clearly. An older man was being protected by a pink-haired female Jinan, while 2 rogue ninjas, clearly from Kirigakure, confronted them. On the opposing side were 2 boys who bore a striking resemblance to each other. Naruko's sharp eyes quickly recognized the Jonin, Sharingan-wielding Kakashi and Kurosuke Raiga, elite ninja from Konoha and Kirigakure, respectively. Assessing the situation in mere seconds, Naruko noticed Raiga adjusting to the clearing mist, clearly preparing to challenge the older man and the pink-haired Jinan. Acting on instinct, Naruko activated Sunshine again, unsealing Kubi Kiribocho from the tattoo on her palm. The sword fit perfectly into her grip, and with a surge of wind chakra, she planted it firmly into the ground before the Jinan, neutralizing the twin swords that had been advancing. The sudden appearance of the tall, muscular blonde ninja in Kiri's camouflage uniform left everyone frozen in surprise. Naruko's headband kept her hair in place as she assessed the scene with calm precision. Kakashi, staring in disbelief, managed to whisper, "Naruko?" Naruko ignored him momentarily, scanning the scene with sharp eyes. The 2 boys had subdued the rogue ninjas, much to her satisfaction. Locking her gaze on Raiga, she addressed him firmly. "Kurosuke Raiga, it's time to reconsider your choices. You can either return to Kiri and honor your duties, or face the consequences of your actions." Raiga raised his twin swords, but Naruko's wind-enhanced blade blocked their attack effortlessly. Surprised, he found himself unable to penetrate the seals on her weapon. Her eyes glimmered with determination as she maintained her stance, ready to protect the innocent bystanders. Turning her attention to the Konoha ninja, she greeted them warmly, though firmly. "Greetings, Konoha ninjas. I would ask why you are here, but it seems this young lady has already explained." Naruko gestured toward Tazuna, who looked both relieved and amazed. Snapping out of his shock, Kakashi studied the young ninja before him. "Naruko, is that really you?" Naruko's face broke into a bright smile. "Inu-san. I'd recognize that mask anywhere," she exclaimed, sweeping him into a friendly bear hug before setting him down gently. "How have you been?" "I've been well," Kakashi replied. "We were all concerned about you until we heard you became a skilled ninja in Kiri." Naruko chuckled lightly. "Ah, no need to worry. I've learned from a great mentor. Not a father figure, but an excellent teacher." "Kisame?" Kakashi asked, a hint of surprise in his voice. "Yes. Hoshigaki Kisame," Naruko confirmed, grinning. "And he's been a great teacher. We even spar from time to time. Speaking of which, we were sent by the Mizukage to re-establish trade relations with Nami no Kuni. Kazuna, any idea where Gato might be?" Kazuna looked startled at her directness but quickly replied. "He has a mansion just outside the port town. It used to belong to the daimyo." "Perfect," Naruko said cheerfully. "We'll handle things carefully. He won't cause any more trouble." A young voice piped up nearby. Naruto-san, where's the rest of your team?" Naruko turned to the pink-haired Jinan who had asked the question, nodding. "They're guarding the child and her mother back at the house. Everything is under control there." Kazuna visibly relaxed. "So, Tsunami-chan is safe?" "Yes," Naruko replied firmly, "and she'll remain that way." Inferring that it was a woman's name, Naruko realized she probably should have asked for clarification earlier. She gave the man a reassuring nod. "Yes, 2 of my Jinan are aspiring medical nin, while Sakiko has an interest in studying herbs, some of which may be more potent than is ideal. Sayuri is more focused on healing, so she and your grandson are in good hands. Their sibling is stationed on lookout duty." Upon hearing the mention of potent herbs, Tazuna looked a little uneasy, but the sudden roar of a large crowd from the nearly completed bridge caught everyone's attention. At first, Naruko thought she saw a very small man in formal attire, which she quickly realized was simply a very short man, not someone affected by any condition. He was leading a group of rough-looking mercenaries toward them. "Ha!" the short man called out. "So Raiga wasn't able to complete the task as planned, huh? I didn't intend to reward him anyway." He finished with an overconfident smirk. "Oh. Hey, are you Gato?" Naruko asked, sounding genuinely curious. What about it, kid? Unless you're here to offer assistance or something useful, I have nothing to say to you. Step aside, he replied sharply. Naruko remained calm, composed, and professional. Her focus was unwavering. The moment Gato made a disparaging remark toward Mizukage-sama, Naruko's attention intensified. The aura she exuded was unlike anything the other shinobi had felt. It was a focused, commanding presence that made even the bravest pause. Some of Gato's mercenaries faltered under it, clearly unsettled. Naruko stepped forward, gracefully moving through the ranks of frozen mercenaries, using small gusts of wind to nudge aside anyone obstructing her path. When she reached Gato, her presence alone caused him to straighten nervously. I intended to resolve this quietly, Gato-san, Naruko said calmly, her tone conversational yet firm. But your unwise words toward Mizukage-sama have changed that. I prefer peaceful resolutions, yet I am resolute when necessary. With a subtle movement, 3 clones of Naruko appeared, guiding Gato out of sight with practiced precision. Any commotion that followed did not concern her, her priority remained the safety of her companions. The other conscious individuals on the bridge were visibly relieved to see her composure in action. Turning her attention to the bridge, Naruko called upon her water-based abilities to restore it, ensuring the path was safe and removing obstacles that the mercenaries had left behind. Tazuna-san, shall we return to your home? I'd like to ensure your daughter is not further troubled. Tazuna nodded, still impressed by Naruko's efficiency and poise. Later, Naruko knocked briskly on the door of Tazuna's house, smiling as the twins answered. Hello, Sakiko-chan. She greeted warmly. Internally, she laughed at not remembering which twin was which, though either way, the response would be friendly. I've found Tazuna-san and the Konoha nin you were expecting. Stepping aside to let Naruko and her team in, the girls' expressions were filled with excitement and curiosity. Naruko carefully managed the situation, securing the younger siblings in a scroll for safety. No need for concern. Let's ensure everyone remains calm and collected. As the group gathered, introductions were made. So, I'm Uzumaki Sakiko. And I'm Uzumaki Sayuri. Our sibling, Tekai, is on lookout duty, they explained. Naruko nodded politely. It's wonderful to meet you, Sakiko-san, Sayuri-san. I'm Haruno Sakura. Other members of the group quietly introduced themselves. The interactions were courteous, and Naruko ensured the environment remained respectful and safe, fostering a cooperative atmosphere among the shinobi and the twins. Later, Naruko discussed recent events with the brothers Gozu and Maizu. You'll need to return to Kiri and report to the Mizukage, correct? She asked. Yes, Gozu replied. We will comply and assist where needed. Naruko smiled warmly. Excellent. I'll need to attend to other matters in Konoha, so I trust you both can make your way safely. She provided them with unmarked headbands for protection, ensuring they could navigate security without trouble. As they departed, Kakashi looked at Naruko in curiosity. Why were you here for all of this? Children adapt quickly when adults aren't hovering, Naruko replied with a gentle grin. It helps them gain confidence and handle situations responsibly. Kakashi observed as Tekai returned home and Naruko adjusted her pace to accompany him. Your Jinan seem unique, he commented. Indeed, Naruko said, jogging lightly. But their training is progressing well, and they are learning to balance skill with responsibility. Bursting into the house, both Naruko and Kakashi were a little surprised but very relieved to see that everything was in order. Naruko noticed, with mild amusement, the unusually close positions of Sakiko and Sayuri to the Uchiha boy, and the increasing frustration on Sakura's face. Sayuri, Sakiko, please stop crowding Sasuke-chan. Everyone deserves their personal space, Naruko gently chided, showing Sasuke that she had recognized him immediately. The twins just pouted and moved to sit on either side of their brother on the couch. Sakura, seizing the opportunity, sat close to Sasuke to reassure him that she cared for him. Sakiko and Sayuri smiled quietly at her efforts. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at Naruko, who shrugged and scratched the back of her neck with a sheepish smile. I can never control those two, they have minds of their own. Kakashi chuckled quietly from behind his book while taking a seat at the table. It took another 3 days, but the bridge was nearly complete when the Kiri team arrived on the island. Naruko and her team had thoroughly examined the previous daimyo's residence, locating everything Gato had mentioned, bank account details and valuables, all of which were turned over to Tazuna for proper management. Naruko and her team stood outside the visitor's entrance, the large gates meant to impress any guests. The small side entrance reserved for Konoha shinobi meant they had to wait their turn. The journey had been smooth, allowing the team to travel comfortably without escorting civilians. The two Jonin decided to travel together for safety, knowing any rogue ninja would think twice before challenging them. Looking back at her Jinan, Naruko couldn't help but smile at their playful antics during the trip. The twins had made a habit of teasing Sasuke in obvious ways, which Naruko knew was just part of their spirited training exercises in teamwork and strategy. At the check-in booth, Naruko presented the official papers. Jonin Uzumaki Naruko, along with Jinan Uzumaki Sayuri, Sakiko, and Tekai, here for the Chunin exams and to escort Mizukage-sama during her negotiations. The guards checked the documents carefully before nodding and returning them. You're free to enter. The Mizukage arrived earlier today and will start negotiations around noon. Her party is at the Dancing Leaf Hotel in the Market District. You should find them there or at the Hokage Tower. Thank you, Naruko said, gesturing for the three Jinan to follow her. Let's get your rooms settled while I report our mission's success to Mizukage-sama. Three enthusiastic "Hi, Sensei" followed her as they made their way to the village. At the Hokage Tower, Naruko familiarized herself with the ground floor before heading to the waiting room for the meeting. Inside, Terumi Mei, Yuki Haku, Kakashi, and his team were already present. Naruko stepped forward and knelt respectfully. Jonin Uzumaki Naruko reporting after a successful mission to re-establish contact with Nami no Kuni, Mizukage-sama. Mei smiled warmly and returned the formal greeting. I acknowledge your successful mission, Jonin Uzumaki Naruko. Naruko energetically presented a small sealing scroll. As requested, the Kiba have been accounted for, and any previous issues have been resolved. All materials have been secured and forwarded appropriately. Mei gave Naruko a gentle smile. Excellent work, Naruko-kun, she said, storing the scroll carefully. Kakashi observed quietly, noting the strong friendship and trust between Naruko and Mei. A small cough interrupted the moment as Sarutobi Hiruzen reminded everyone of the formal proceedings. Naruko then turned respectfully to the elderly Hokage. It is good to see you again, Hokage-sama. I hope the past years have treated you well. Well enough, Naruko-kun. Come inside, and we will begin our meeting, Hiruzen replied. Mei added, Hi, Hokage-sama, and the group followed inside. Naruko gave Kakashi a discreet high five before proceeding with Haku and Mei into the office, ready to discuss the mission in full. So, Haku-chan, I see everything went smoothly, Naruko said cheerfully. If you keep calling me that, Naruko-kun, I will have to respond in kind, Haku replied with a faint sigh. The doors closed, signaling the start of their formal discussion. Dear YouTube family. This is all for now. If you enjoyed the content, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps me create even more exciting videos. Thank you for being part of this journey. Warm regards. 6 Path Weeb.